and I think we got all the senators incorporated, and we were helped out a little bit by illness. So thank you guys for all being here. Yeah. So it's a pleasure to welcome Senator Erickson and her committee. We thought it would be easier on the blueprint for literacy folks to hear everything once and not put you through it twice. And I also want to thank staff who went to another room, or it looks like we have a couple of spots. If y'all, Senator Hill, we can put you right here, right next to Representative McNorton, and you guys can reminisce about the good old days when you were in the House.
Don't expect to get any real advice.
Representative Schreiber, we're going to put you at this empty seat right here in the center. And the moral of the story is be on time. So thank you. We're so glad to see so many people here who are passionate about literacy. We thank you all for being here. I was going to do bill introductions and also allow Senator Erickson to do bill introductions. I know of at least one on the House, but I don't see that person making that. But I will go ahead and do any other House members who have a bill, and then other people who have a bill, which I do believe former Representative Patton has one for us. Representative Brantley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I have a bill, RS number 2531.
And the short explanation of your bill.
It's an act regarding concerning education relating to school districts requiring children to be toilet trained to enroll in and attend kindergarten.
Okay. Welcome, Senator Murphy. Let's grab a seat from the overflow room for Senator Murphy. Michelle, can you do that, please? Or thank you, Representative Chauncey. Senator Murphy, we're going to have a seat for you very shortly. House member, any opposition to receiving that bill? Seeing none. Are there any other House members with a bill introduction? Fred, I believe you have a bill introduction. We'll call on you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Madam Chair, members of all the committees. Good to see you. As you know, I am here on behalf of the Board of Regents. I actually have 3 requests, all related. As you know, you have 10 scholarships that the Board of Regents administers for you. These all 3 deal with those scholarships. The first, 26 RS 2820, deals with the Education Opportunity Scholarship, which you all created a couple of years ago. This change would help clarify the definition of teacher or paraprofessional in that legislation, or in that language in the statute.
And we'll handle them separately. Any objection to receiving this bill? Seeing none, you're introduced. Your next one?
Next one's 26 RS 2826. This deals with the Kansas Promise Scholarship. It makes some tweaks to the administration of that program.
Does it increase the limit or the amount of scholarships? I heard that we have the wonderful problem that we're running out of scholarship money.
Which is a good thing, right? It deals with some of the requirements post-graduation, and also deals with that act, when put into effect, had a sunset, and this would do away with the sunset.
Very good. Any objection to receiving this bill? Then the bill is received. And your last one?
And the last one's 26 RS 2823. This deals with all 10 of them, and it gives the authority to Regent staff, as they're trying to settle claims for repayment, to gives them some more discretion on how to deal with repayment and when students can't make repayment if they're not complying with all the terms.
Thank you. Any objection to receiving this bill? Seeing none, you were introduced.
Thank you
Senator
all.
Erickson, would you like to receive bills as well?
Thank you, Madam Chair. I inform my committee that we will hold off on bill introductions till tomorrow. I believe we have about a dozen. So for the sake of time, we will hold off. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Wow, thank you. Committee, I think that means we'll be working long and hard when those bills bounce their way over here. So it is my pleasure to get right down to business and begin with introducing Dr. Cindy Lane, who's been working on the blueprint. Welcome, Dr. Lane.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair and members of both committees. I'm thrilled to be here with you today. With the chair's permission, I'd like to introduce some colleagues that are going to be joining me and providing you with some information today. Is that all right? So the purpose of today is to provide you a one-year progress report on the Blueprint for Literacy. And joining me today are members of the Blueprint Advisory Committee. If you're on the advisory committee, would you raise your hand so that everyone knows that you're here? Outstanding group of individuals that have been guiding this work. Also with me is the Senior Associate Director of the Blueprint, Rachel Rubio. I say that she's all things literacy, so if you need a literacy expert, please ask Rachel. In terms of others, Dr. Carolyn Carlson will be providing some information directly to you today. Dr. Carlson is a professor at Washburn University. She's also the lead for the group that we call the Literacy 7, the lead literacy faculty across the 7 public institutions. And I often think of her as my lead faculty advisor. So Dr. Carlson, welcome. Also with us today is Rebecca Robbins, who is a special educator. We thought you might want to hear directly from an educator about the importance of the Foundations course in particular and the work that we're doing. And then finally, Dan Dooling. Dan is the Partnership and Outreach Facilitator for Pittsburgh State. They received a grant from the Blueprint that is about literacy coaching, and so he will provide you some information about that. So, Madam Chairs, if you please, we'll just use the report as the testimony today. You have in your packet, you have a hard copy of the report. You also have on the left-hand side a 2-page kind of summary of the accomplishments of year 1 and the budget. Certainly pleased to answer any questions about any of those things. You also received an electronic version of the report. Hello. And I would encourage you to look at that because there are hot links in that report that'll take you directly to our strategic plan and other details. Let's get right to it, though. The Blueprint for Literacy, I thought we should start with some background in terms of where it came from and certainly grounding ourselves in the why. Yes, sir. Please, thank you. Should have had the technology check beforehand. But let me, as he's pulling that slide up, I wanted to remind you of where we stand in terms of literacy performance as a nation. And so when we look at the National Assessment of Education Progress scores, Kansas scores 11th in the nation in 4th grade reading and 14th in the nation in 8th grade reading proficiency. The issue that we face here in Kansas is a literacy crisis, but we are not alone in that crisis. I mean, think about that. We have a third of our students who are not reading well, yet we are almost in the top 10 of performance nationally in reading. It is important to remember that we are addressing the issue, but we are not alone in the issue. Any luck, Jalen, in getting that information up?
I'm looking on the drive.
Okay.
Everything was done last night, so I'm gonna have to do it.
That's okay. That's all right. We'll jump on when you can. But Kansas, like other states, did not stand back and ignore the issue. You all passed in 2022 the Every Child Can Read Act, and then in 2024, you passed the Blueprint for Literacy. And so these policies are strong, and they've gotten us to a good place. But like Grandma Minnie always told me, at sundown, take stock of the good work that you have done, but at sunrise, get up and realize there's more to do. So as we work together on talking about the Blueprint, you're going to see some successes, but there is significantly much more work that we need to do. The Blueprint for Literacy is focused on higher ed. It was a bill that you passed and charging the higher ed system to strengthen educator preparation programs in partnership with the State Department of Education and the State Board of Education. And our role was to do two things: strengthen educator preparation at the undergraduate level and to provide high-quality professional learning programs that would help our educators in the field improve the implementation of the science of reading and structured literacy. So if you'll turn to page 8 of your report, you'll see the goals. There are goals outlined in Senate Bill 438 that require us by the year 2030 to have 100% of our elementary education workforce trained in the science of reading and structured literacy. And the second goal, the most important goal, by the year 2033, that 90% of Kansas 3rd through 8th graders are to be reading at a level 2 or higher on the Kansas State Assessment, and that 50% of those children should be reading at levels 3 and 4. We're going to talk more about those goals moving forward, but I just want to plant this seed with you. Now that we have a new assessment and new cut scores, we know that proficiency is now at level 3 on the state assessment. So I will be visiting with you at a future moment for consideration of revising our goal, because in my mind, the current goal says it's okay to have 90% of our children reading at basic or above. I'm not sure that's your intention. So flag that page on the report and realize that we will be coming back to that. How we doing, Jaden? No luck. Okay. I'll do my best without some visuals then. The chart on page 2 of the report, and let me get it so I can be guiding through that with you, shows us how we're doing on the benchmarks towards the goal. So let me explain what you're looking at. The data here is from 3rd through 10th grade, and then the bottom line is all grades. The first column is the percentage of children performing at level 1. The second column, level 2. The third column is a combination of the percent of children who are performing at level 3 or higher. So you can see at 3rd grade, we have 51.85% of our children in 3rd grade that are reading proficient and higher. And so they have, in essence, met the second part of your goal. 4th and 5th grade are close. If you look at that far right column, that is an indicator of where are we in terms of the benchmark to achieving our 90% goal. And you can see that for each grade level, we have 72% or a little bit higher of children who are reading at 90% or higher. So it's important to understand where we are. Now, one last point. If you go to the bottom row and you add the percentage of level 1 and level 2, it shows you that overall, we have 55% of our children reading below proficiency on the state assessment. And we have 45% of our children in grades 3 through 10 who are reading at proficiency or above. Let me pause and see if you have questions there.
Just before we go to questions, Cindy, you were kind enough to volunteer to give us your seat if we need another. I thought we had all of our late folks in. We do have a legislator who just arrived, so if you don't mind that. And then Senator Erickson, let me know if you have a question, so we'll let you begin questions.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just real quickly, the chart on page 2, those assessment results, those reflect the new cut scores, correct?
That's correct, Senator Erickson.
Do we know what they would have been based on the old cut scores?
I anticipated that you would answer that question, and I do not have that information because a correlation study would have needed to be done. So I do not. For me, as I've thought about this, the intention is to get our children to proficiency. So taking a look at it from that frame. That may be data that the State Department could provide.
Representative Brantley.
Thank you, Madam Chair. A couple things, if I may. Is there any way we could get a comparison using the old cut scores and the new to see how they do relate? You were talking about that comparison correlation?
Certainly be pleased to ask the State Department of Education if they could provide that for us. They may already have that information, but in terms of higher ed, we do not. But I can get that for you. I'll ask
Thank
them.
you.
I think that's important.
Thank you. Any other questions? Senator Gossage.
Thank you, Madam Chair. You mentioned our standing in the national. Can you tell us based upon what criteria?
That's the National Assessment of Education Progress, and they rank order the states in terms of proficiency, and that's where that rank order came from.
So is there a national standardized test that the children do?
It's the National Assessment of Education Progress, and it's given to random selection of fourth graders and eighth graders on a regular basis, I believe annually.
And when you say a random selection, how is that done in Kansas?
It's done by, they identify the fourth grade students that'll take the assessment, and those are the ones that are assessed. It's done at the national level through the districts. They identify the students.
Senator, there's a federal program that requires a sample of states that are given, so we don't actually have much to do with it, but it's the federal government's way of being able to compare progress in all the states. And I'll be happy to share you
I would like more information.
the websites on those. It's a very interesting reading. Senator Hill.
Yes.
Senator, if you could use the microphone, please, for those in the overflow. Thank you.
I'm used to having people tell me to be quiet, not get louder, so. I wanted to go to the NAEP scores that you just cited. I have very different results of that. Maybe I get a different NAEP, but I have fourth grade at 28th in the nation out of 50 states, and I have eighth grade at 44th in the nation out of 50 states. So I'm not sure where you're getting the top 10 at. It must be different scores.
Not different scores, but I'll get you that information so you can see the citation. I did not bring that today, but I can get you that report.
Okay, thank you, because I went to the NAEP, the National Assessment Education Progress website to get those numbers, so I'm not sure.
I'll
why
get
they're
you a
different.
copy of the report so you can see exactly.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome. If we now would go to page 3 of your report, I wanted to continue to just demonstrate that the challenge we face is not an urban issue, it's not a suburban issue, it's not rural, it's not public, it's not private, it's across the entire state. So it's critically important that we find ways working together to have strong partnerships, strong policy, and strong systems to address it. This chart is for third graders, and the red dots show you the districts where we have more than 41% of our students performing at levels 1 and 2. The yellow is where they have less than 40%, but more than 21. And then the green, they have 0 to 20% of students in levels 1 and 2. So the reason I'm sharing this with you is to say that there's urgency in our work, and the solutions will come with a strong partnership between K-12, higher ed, and this body as we determine policy that will help us improve. Now, let's switch now to, with that background, the why we should be focusing on literacy, the performance. On pages 4 through 7, you have a detailed report on where we are in implementing specific things that are articulated in Senate Bill 438. Things like an annual curriculum map, and creating an aligned assessment system for educators to use, and implementing the credit hour courses, the 3 credit hour courses at the undergraduate. I'm not going to spend any time on this chart with you today unless you have questions, but I wanted you to see how it lays out next to the statutory requirements. If you want to read details about the curriculum mapping report, you can simply click on that link that's in your electronic version, and it'll take you there for that. So let's move.
Before we move on to the next section, Representative Brantley.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and you may have just answered that. Can we get a copy of that curriculum alignment, not the report, but the actual alignment, showing where all the science of reading is placed in all the coursework?
We can provide that to you, yes. The report is a summary of that, so the one that you have online will not have that detail, but we'd be glad to provide the detail.
Thank you.
Representative McNorton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This is a personal request for people like me who are colorblind. When you make your maps, don't use red and green. That's all the same to me. Make blue, yellow, something, if you would, please.
I'd be glad to.
Thank you.
I should have recognized that because I have a touch of that and my brother does too. So I see Rachel's making a note. Thank you so much. All right, so the blueprint has been in effect since July 1st, 2024. We have had our first full year of implementation, and I want to draw your attention to page 7 and 8 and all the timeline of accomplishments that are there. Now, again, I'm not going to pull all of those things, but in a minute I'm going to get some highlights. Are we there? They have the report in front of them, sir, so I don't think we need that. Hold it, I may change my mind, thank you.
I'm sorry for the tech person. If you hear her say what page she's on and you can find the correlating slide, please go ahead and do that because we do have people in overflow and watching us online. Thank you.
Thank you for helping me with that, Jalen. So pages 4 through 7 is a summary of those things. Pages 7 is the timeline on page 7 and 8 of all the things that have been done. But we're going to dig into a few of those accomplishments shortly with you so you can ask some specific questions. But I did want you to see the breadth of the work that has been in place since we were last together a year ago in January. At the bottom of page 8 is a chart that speaks to our benchmark necessary to achieve our workforce goal. Now, there are 18,698 elementary educators, including administrators, who the State Board of Education has identified as requiring the seal of literacy. So that's where that 18,698 comes from. To date, as of last week, between letters and the foundation's courses, we have trained 9,420 educators. Shortly, I'll show you what contribution the foundation's course has made. The majority of this is the letters training. But I want you to see that we have over 9,000 trained to date. We need to get to the remaining roughly 9,000 educators to achieve your goal in 2030. Moving on to page 9 then, I want to highlight the things that are in the box. Yes, ma'am.
I think it would be helpful if you defined we. I think you mean the entire state, that the blueprint hasn't educated 9,000, hasn't.
No. That number is a combination of KSDE's letters initiative, and the majority of the ones trained to date are letters. And I'll show you shortly specifically the foundation's courses that the universities are teaching, the contribution to that.
And do you have the number of those who are in progress? And it's okay if you don't.
I do not have the number of in progress from KSDE, but I can tell you that in progress, I do have those numbers. I'll show those to you shortly, Representative Estes for Foundation. So let's hit some highlights of the actual work of the blueprint, what you've charged us to do, and where we are in that work. On page 9, you'll see some boxes there of the ones that I want to highlight. But again, I'm willing to talk with you about any of the initiatives that are in place. First thing that occurred when the bill was signed into law and became effective July 1st of 2024, the 7 public universities had 30 days to revise their science of reading courses at the undergraduate level and to ensure that they were application focused, meaning that our candidates had plenty of opportunity to practice implementing the science of reading and structured literacy. And those courses have a common performance assessment. So the 7 public universities use the same tool to evaluate their pre-service candidates' skill sets through those 2 courses. Those courses had to be up and running by August 2024. So they had 30 days. They met that charge. Those courses are in place. And now we're in the process of strengthening the courses in providing rigorous review of those courses and looking at other ways of assessing whether or not a candidate can actually apply the structured literacy skills. So that, we know that that's a continuous improvement, but you should feel confident that if you're going through a public university, you are being taught the science of reading and you're being taught structured literacy. And let me just put an asterisk on that. Those concepts have been taught for a while. The difference is we need more application. If you think about how we train people in the medical field, they have hours and hours and hours of application in order to be able to do that technical skill. Teaching reading, as many of you know, is one of the most difficult things that we do as an adult. And so we have identified as higher ed, one of our goals is to increase the amount of application experiences that our undergraduates have. And I'll talk to you more about where we think we're headed with that shortly. On the top of page 10, you'll see some information about the evaluation that we're doing of those ongoing courses, and part of that evaluation includes field-based focus groups and conversations out in schools with educators across the state so we can identify what they recommend that we strengthen in undergraduate programs. That report will be available later during the session. If you're interested in that, I can make sure that you receive that. So the next area I want to highlight is the Foundations of Science. It's called the Foundations of Science and Reading, Understanding and Applying Structured Literacy, a big mouthful for a course. These are courses that are graduate level courses. We call it Foundations. They were put in place at low or no cost to our in-service educators as an option for training. So if letters was not accessible to them or that they wanted a different type of learning, the 7 public universities designed Foundations. The state board approved this course after it was validated by the Reading League. The state board approved it for the Seal of Literacy in April of 2025. We launched a pilot in late March, just before that approval at Washburn, and it is now being offered across all 7 public universities and 5 of our independent colleges. I thought you'd like to hear directly from the faculty member who is not only helping to design that course, but has been teaching that course. So with your permission, Madam Chair, I'll invite Dr. Carlson up to tell you more about Foundations.
Before we make that transition, I'm aware of at least one question, and let's do questions and then move over. So Representative Brantley and Representative Wilson and Representative Schreiber. Representative Brantley, you were called on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Of the 9,000 teachers that have received this seal, can you tell me, of that group or others, how many are having to retake the 2-year course because they didn't pass the test?
I think we're conflating 2 things, but you tell me if I'm understanding correctly. The Seal of Literacy is in-service educators, and that 9,000 number reflects not pre-service candidates coming out, in-service educators.
No, I'm talking about teachers in the field that are taking letters. If they don't pass their test and they have to retake it, what percentage are not passing that? And if they are not passing it, are we paying for the letters again for them?
That's a question for the State Department, as they're the ones that are facilitating letters, but I can certainly make sure that you get that response.
Thank you, Senator Starnes, then Representative Schreiber, and then Representative Hubert.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Lane, for what you're doing. My question is, on looking through some of these clinical experiences, which I'm very grateful that you're doing, I think that's paramount. And this may be an assumption, but hopefully some of this also gets into classroom management. I think some of the issues that we have with reading are directly related to classroom management, and anything we can do to help facilitate that would be important. I see the things that are listed here, and I didn't necessarily see it there. I assumed, but just the clinical experience of being able to handle a classroom, to be able to teach what you're actually working on would be valuable.
Spoken like a former superintendent. Absolutely, that's the number one cause for new teachers to step away from the field, right? We know that. This particular clinical that we're talking about is literacy only. Pre-service candidates do have field experiences prior to that, but I point well taken that we need to strengthen that because the classroom management piece is fundamental to all that we do. We also need to be thinking at some point about how we're doing on the science of teaching, which is not content specific, but in general. So so your question is duly noted.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And one other just follow up on the situation. I'm looking at chart 5 with the universities, and I'm just curious, Fort Hays State and Emporia State use AI application, and just curious what that is.
May I hold you on that, and we'll get there. Again, as a former superintendent, I see you're ahead of the game for us, but we'll come to that shortly, and I'd be glad to answer that question.
Representative Schreiber, and then we'll move along as Representative Hubert has withdrawn his question.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Dr. Lane, for the information. I wanted to follow up on Senate Bill 438, where it prohibited school districts from using the 3 queuing method and so forth. I don't know if that'd be a question for you with the Department of Ed, but is there some assurance that that's happening, that the school districts are no longer using that kind of methodology?
It is both a question for the state board, but I have a response. The state board has said that those things must be eliminated, and so I would welcome the question to them about how they're monitoring that. Senate Bill 438 also says that higher ed needs to do the same thing. Right. And so we have made it very clear, and all the deans have attested that those discredited practices are no longer in our instruction. However, the curriculum mapping is a way to verify that. And you're going to hear me speak when we talk about revisions to 438 about ways that I think we can enhance our ability to be assured of what's being taught.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dr. Lane. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Well, we can.
May I transition now to Dr. Carlson?
I was doing it for you. Dr. Carlson, come on up.
Without your beautiful slides, I'm sure you'll do fine.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair and Madam Chair. So just like with other professions, like the medical field, as new research is conducted and we learn more, teachers must be continually learning. But they're busy teaching our students, and so they rely on their district and the State Department to provide them with the latest information. And just like how a physician who graduated from medical school 10 years ago needs to be provided with continual learning, so do our teachers. Some teachers may have been teaching for 20 years. Some teachers may have degrees from institutions from other states, or some teachers may have not even gone through a traditional teacher education program. Regardless of the situation, all teachers need to be given ongoing learning opportunities due to new developments in brain-based research on literacy. And while higher education faculty do offer professional development to schools and provide resources, it's done on an individual basis. The districts and the State Department have a more systematic method and the means for accomplishing this statewide so that all teachers are reached. However, when higher ed was asked to enter this initiative to help provide training to current teachers, we were eager to help. And we got right to work, and we have not stopped since. The blueprint required that training be provided to in-service teachers, but it did not specify what that training would entail. And Dr. Lane asked for feedback on several commercially available training programs. And my colleagues and I, one literacy faculty from each of the 7 public institutions, we began reviewing these programs and discussing both their positive and their negative aspects. Ultimately, we believed that these generic online training programs were not good enough for our Kansas teachers. If we really want to support our teachers, the training must be relevant and it must be impactful. And the commercial products designed by people outside of Kansas for general use across the country are limited in their relevance and their impactfulness. My colleagues and I believed that our teachers deserved training that was developed by Kansans and delivered by Kansans. We could have simply endorsed one of the other generic training programs that lacked any relevance to Kansas, but we chose not to. We specifically requested of Dr. Lane and the Literacy Advisory Committee that the 7 institutions be allowed to collaboratively create courses that were aligned with what Kansas teachers need, and we are thankful that we were given this opportunity. So the Foundations courses we developed have shown to be impactful, and this is because of the 3 components in the course. First, the content, second, the community of practice, and third, the coaching. So first, the content includes 12 modules that align with the science of reading that identifies the skills necessary for proficient reading, such as phonemic awareness, decoding, encoding, morphology, things like that. And the reading rope, which is often used, and it may be in your packet somewhere, is a visualization of all of those skills being woven together to create proficient reading. And our content in these courses are designed to do 2 things. First, to refine existing knowledge, and second, to explore new knowledge. Our teachers have a lot of knowledge already, so the content doesn't just repeat what they already know, it challenges them to see it differently and to understand it at a greater depth. Once the teachers reach a certain level of proficiency, they then immediately apply that knowledge into their classroom or another authentic setting. And throughout the learning and the application process, the teachers are guided and supported by their faculty, their coach, and each other. The second course component is the community of practice component. We work together as a group to examine issues so that we can learn more deeply. For example, I teach from a perspective of all teach, all learn. Everyone in the room has something that they can teach one another, and everyone in the room has something that they can learn from one another. And throughout my course, we meet in person, and we dive deeper into certain issues that the teachers have identified as areas of concern or confusion. And these discussions not only provide me with the opportunity to speak directly to an area that they want to learn more about or that I have identified as an area of weakness, but it allows the teachers an opportunity to ask each other questions, to share resources and ideas, and to build a sense of community across schools. The impact of this in-person learning was made clear to me when we were shifting from our spring schedule to our summer schedule. I asked the teachers if they still wanted to meet on campus, and their answer was a resounding yes. They valued the time that we spent together. I had multiple teachers comment that our class session was the highlight of their week. The sense of community, the learning environment where all perspectives are valued, and it's a place where new knowledge is explored and old ideas are challenged, made these sessions something that they looked forward to. The third component of the course is the coaching. This has shown to be a critical component missing from these teachers' professional lives. When I initially introduced the idea of coaching to these teachers, they were apprehensive. Oftentimes, a coach is there to evaluate a specific type of instruction or set goals for a teacher, but not in this case. Our coaches are outside of the district and are there to support and guide the teacher, not to evaluate. And that apprehension shifted to eagerness when I explained to them that they had a one-on-one, non-evaluative coach. So each teacher developed goals with the help of their coach, and they worked together to try to meet those goals. And that original apprehension went from apprehension to eagerness to appreciation. The teachers were often expressing gratitude for having been partnered with a coach. They looked forward to their weekly meeting with their coach, and that is a sign of an impactful learning experience. So to date, all 7 public institutions, as well as 5 of our partner independent colleges, have offered this learning experience to hundreds of teachers across the state. All 12 institutions are continually and collaboratively refining these courses as we learn from our teachers how we can more effectively support them. I'm very proud to be a member of the faculty that developed these courses. I'm also very proud to be the instructor of the pilot of these courses. But I am most proud of the teachers that have chosen this learning pathway rather than settling for a less robust experience. Word has gotten around that these courses are tough, they take a lot of time, they have high expectations, but they are worth it. Our teachers in Kansas are smart and they are dedicated. And these courses are helping them make a difference. Many of the teachers I had in my courses are already reporting a significant gain in the reading scores by implementing what they had learned. For example, one of the teachers noted that when she implemented what she had learned, her students made gains by December that she would not normally see until May. So our work is making a difference, and we need to continue to support our teachers so that they can continue to help our students. The success of our work has not gone unnoticed. In particular, other states have watched the universities in Kansas collaborate with the singular goal of supporting teachers and students. The depth of our collaboration is unusual at the higher ed level. The institutions have joined together without reservation to align our work at both the in-service and pre-service level. We do not view our in-service and pre-service teachers as mine or yours, depending on which institution they're closest to. All teachers across the state are ours, and all 7 of us work together to support teachers, whether they are in Pretty Prairie, or KCK, or Colby. We communicate almost daily, sharing new research, asking for professional opinions on an area, and conducting our own statewide research on our work. This level of collaboration is something that is truly unique to Kansas, and over the past year, we've spoken to various individuals across the country and internationally, and they are impressed with how a collaborative effort can make such a difference. And they want to learn more about what is happening in Kansas. Do we have room for improvement? Absolutely. But have we made an impact on teachers and students? Absolutely. So despite our successes, we still have challenges. Working with these teachers has highlighted the systems issues that we have in this state. We may have different groups doing what they may believe is best, but those approaches may not be in alignment with one another. For example, research indicating that a certain approach is the most effective is shared with teachers at the higher ed level, but teachers' ability to implement that approach in a school may be impeded due to lack of time or available resources. So just like that reading rope that I mentioned, with individual strands being tightly woven, we are each a strand in the systems rope, and we must work together to become a tight braid. And higher education is fully committed to being a part of the system that is focused on supporting teachers and students across the state. Thank you.
And we'll open for questions. Senator Rose, thank you. I sat there, I looked at you, and I know you, and I drew a blank. Senator Rose.
I'll improve my name recognition. Thank you, Madam Chair. What is the difference in student outcomes between teachers who have completed the training and those who have not?
This specific, the foundations courses, we do not have that data. It's too early to tell. We have, the first cohort started in March, completed in August. So we are collecting data for this academic year on what's happening. But some of the data is showing that even with the training, the implementation is, there are barriers within the schools for these teachers to implement what they now know.
I think that'd be interesting data. Thank you, Madam Chair.
You're welcome, and that's been a drum of mine that I keep beating, that we need measurable. I often say I'm not afraid for us to fail, but I'm very afraid for us to not try, and I think we have to measure early and often, and I hope you guys are measuring in a way that we can get a peer-reviewed type of research data out of. So thank you, very good line of questioning. Any other questions? Senator Starnes?
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for what you're doing. My question is, as far as coaches, how many coaches do you have, and how do they work? Do they actually go into the classroom, be able to observe, do those things? Just curious about the coaching and the numbers.
So each institution is using a coaching model, and it might be slightly different. But each teacher across the state, if they're in the foundations courses, has a coach. How that is exactly implemented depends on how the institution has set it up. So for example, at Washburn, we have coaches we're using through a coaching network that's already been developed. And it's a one-on-one coaching program. And one of the things we found is when it's non-evaluative, when it's someone outside of the district, that makes a difference in that relationship and the impact. And these coaches they meet virtually. Let me be clear that these are actual humans They just are, so when I say virtual, they're just meeting via Zoom. But they are outside of the district and they meet with their teacher once a week. But the teacher will often send videos of things that are happening in the classroom and things like that. So there's a lot of interactivity, a lot of back and forth with the, between the coach and the teacher.
Thank you, Senator Sykes.
Thank you. Thank you for being here. So my question may be piggybacking on that again, with the 7 public universities and then the 5 independent colleges. So is there crossover? Do you have the same fidelity? Do they have maybe some of those same coaches that are working for both?
We do. We share, and again, it's kind of institution to institution, but yes, there's a lot of crossover. The coaching protocols that we use are the same. The way we implement it, the way we assess that, that's all the same, and that was built into the design of the course.
I hope I pronounced this correctly, Senator Arterbright.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Public and private, our kids, every one of our kids deserves a chance. I appreciate what you're doing. Dr. Lane, I appreciate your leadership. We got to get this right. I'm very supportive of your efforts, and I appreciate what everybody's doing. Thank you.
Any other questions for Dr. Carlson? Then we will have Dr. Lane introduce our next speaker. Thank you for being, or did you have more, Dr. Carlson, that I missed? Okay.
Dr. Carlson can introduce Rebecca because Rebecca's one of her students. And I would encourage you to ask Rebecca, what was the difference in this Foundations course experience as compared to others? She's a seasoned teacher. So thank you.
So with your permission, I'd like
We have a last second question before we move on. Senator Erickson.
Not a question, but just for the good of the whole, the Senate has to be on the floor at 2:30, so we will need to leave the committee hearing or the information at about 2:25. So just so everyone's aware. Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Erickson. Go ahead and introduce your student, please.
bring up Rebecca Robbins. It has been my privilege to work with Rebecca Robbins. She is an exemplary teacher. We should be proud to have her working in the state of Kansas. She is a special education behavior specialist and special education teacher at the Jaguar Academy at Jardine Elementary right here in Topeka, and we should be proud to have her here. Thank you.
Welcome, and please state your name again clearly for the record.
Rebecca Robbins.
Thank you.
And because of time restraints, I had a whole speech kind of put together for you, but I'm just going to kind of fly through this so you guys can get to questions and ask me anything that you may have. I am a special education teacher, but this is my 26th year in education. I've spent 14 years in the general education classroom before going on to get, actually I'm working towards my doctorate in special education. I have my master's in educational leadership, all from K-State. This was my first time working with Washburn, and it was an amazing experience. In the last 9 years, working as a special education teacher, I work, as Dr. Carlson said, in Jaguar Academy, which is a behavior unit, a locked behavior unit for students who are physically aggressive and violent. It brings a whole nother element to the table of for teaching, because you have to approach and deal with situations completely different. But despite all that, I was still able to take everything I learned from the Foundations course back to my setting and apply it with my students. There have been many times over the past few years that I'm like, there is something, trying to use the traditional stuff that we've been told by districts to use and implement for reading that do not work. And oftentimes do not work with our special students that have other mental health needs. I have been fighting for something like this for a long time. When I first started in education many years ago, things that are part of the Foundations course and the structures of literacy were things we were doing in the classroom. We used phonics, we used all those other components. Then we kind of tossed those away and went to new things. in that time, I saw firsthand how we went from creating students who were able to read in kindergarten by teaching them the letter P and then teaching them the letter U, and then they knew the word up, and then they could write a sentence with up and pup and expand from there to where we got rid of all of that. And then we had writing, reading, everything, scores drop. Some people want to blame it on COVID, which it is a huge component to it as well. But there are so many other factors. This program is amazing. I will say that when I heard of this initiative in the state of Kansas, I was not happy because it was going to be one more thing that teachers had to do on our own time. And I'm like, I don't know how many times it is. Are you kidding me? Now you're going to make me do this, and we don't even have enough teachers to fill our classrooms. And now you want all of us to do this, or we're not going to have a license? Okay. But then I heard about the pilot program from Washburn University. I still wasn't excited, but I'm like, okay, fine. I'll sign up and see if I can be one of the 30 people to be a part of this program. I am so glad that I put my name in and that I was one of those to do the first course. It was amazing. I truly could not wait to go to class every single week, even during the summer, which we know how we love our summers. I was still there. I loved it. I wanted to learn more. And as I said, I'm a veteran teacher. I know my stuff. I know how to apply things. I know how to do what's right for my students, even if it's not what the district is saying we need to do. Because I want all of my students to learn, despite their disabilities, despite anything else. And I've made huge gains with students over the years that some other people have said have written them off. There's ways we can do things. The program that was created with the Blueprint for Literacy is incredible. And it's something that our state should be proud of. This woman behind me, she is amazing. She got all of us working together collaboratively. Conversations were created. My coach, someone was asking about coaching experience. My coach was in Connecticut. She was also in the field of special education. She does things beyond that now, and she speaks at different things. It was an amazing connection that I would not have been able to have otherwise.
I'm going to stop you there just because I want to give senators who are leaving a chance to ask any questions that they have, and then we'll allow you to continue. So are there any questions from senators? Senator Sykes?
Thank you for being here, Rachel. So you said you were skeptical at first, and so what would you say to teachers out there that are probably still skeptical and they're like, this is just that one other thing that I have to check off?
Oh, I have already said, if you can take this course, take this course. It will give you the best information. It will transform what you're doing in your classroom. And one of the other things that is so amazing about this is that a lot of times phonemic awareness and phonics and those lower level basic skills in literacy are often geared toward kindergarten, first grade teachers. But so often we get kids, 5th, 6th grade, that still don't know their letters, sounds, those things that they need. And 4th and 5th grade teachers have no idea, how do I tackle this? With this course, it gives them the tools to figure out, oh, okay, now I know how to do this, and actually make it work, and not just flounder around and just try to figure it out and just do the best that you can. It's good for everyone.
Senator Gossage?
Thank you. My master's program is in special ed and reading. You mentioned that, I saw it too. You saw the pendulum go from phonics education to whole language, and then we went back to phonics. Can you explain a little bit about the difference between the training that we went to go back to phonics to this program that you just had? Can you give us an example?
I feel like right now we're still kind of in that whole language area. There's districts that are holding on to that. There's little components of phonics in there, but it's not as deeply rooted as in phonics in that phonemic building blocks like what we had many years ago when I first started. And because of that, I'm not seeing the gains that we saw many, many years ago. And it was across the class that I mean, yes, you will always have groups of kids that they struggle, but it's completely different. And just how everyone just kind of took a dip when we went to whole language, not knowing what we know now. And now that we know, do better, be better.
Thank you. Do we have any other questions from senators? If not, senators, we've enjoyed having you with us very much. I apologize for the small space. We tried to get the larger room, but they were also having a joint session. So thank you all, everybody, for being gracious. Rachel, don't go anywhere. We're going to let you finish. And
My name's
somebody said
It's okay. I use
Rachel,
whatever.
and then I was like, oh, I must be wrong.
That was Rebecca. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Do I need anything else? Okay.
Rebecca. House members, if you want to quickly go back to your usual seat or stay where you are, all of those things are fine. Or you can stay where you are and not move. It's up to you. All right. Rebecca, were you finished? Because I also want to allow House members to have time to ask you questions. We have a little bit more time.
No problem.
We master at 2:30.
Okay, I'll see you. And Representative Ballard, thank you for being with us again. I didn't get to do that before. Do we have questions for Rebecca from House members? All right, then I'll start. Rebecca, I'm surprised that you're seeing as much whole language in the classrooms now. How universal do you think that is?
I don't know for sure. I only have the experience in the school district that I'm in. But I have a feeling just based on scores all across the board that it's probably happening more than what we realize. There are components, don't get me wrong, there are components to structured literacy around, and it just kind of depends on which teacher it is and what they choose to do. But depending on which curriculum programs are bought for different school districts, also dictates what teachers can use. Unless you're a person that is willing to go beyond what is provided by the school district to do what is needed for your students.
So you think that there's a potential some school districts have not changed their curriculum? Okay. That's very sad, but very important for us to hear. So thank you for being.
Which is also based back to funding and what money you have, and if that's all you can have, then that's where it's at too.
Well, there is a large amount of money sitting in most districts' textbook funds, and it can only spend for that. So that's part of why that's sad to hear. So any other questions for Rebecca? All right, seeing none, Rebecca, thank you for being with us. Dr. Lane?
Thank you very much, and thank you, Rebecca. It's important to have a teacher voice in this work. So on page 11 of the report, just to wrap up our discussions of the Foundations course, you can see specifically how much scholarship money has been designated. We provide the scholarship to the universities or the independent colleges so that there's no cost to our in-service educators for these courses. The Board of Regents approved a market rate tuition so that the cost is $300 a credit hour, but again, that is paid for by the funds that you all allocated for the blueprint. We've had 836 educators complete since it started in late March, and the stipends have been awarded there. We still have opportunity. We have another 500, let me get that so I don't tell you wrong, but on your one pager that you also have in your packet, may I borrow somebody's packet? There's a one pager that looks like this, cute kids on the front. On the back, it'll actually show you how many, we've had 511 completers, 326 that are in process of completing, and we still have opportunity for more this year. So it's on page 11. the bottom of the page. So the foundations course has certainly been one of the.
Dr. Lane, before you move on, I keep trying to make sure we get all our questions in one area
Yes,
before
ma'am.
we move to another, and I keep getting late-minute questions, so I'm going to call on my Vice Chair, Representative McNorton.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So can you go through that again? Because I thought the state that we are paying for all the teachers that take the course. I don't understand the scholarships awarded, or what's the difference there, if you would, please?
This is the messiness of having a blueprint that's only higher ed, and then having all the other initiatives, right? So at some point, we'll talk about a comprehensive plan. But to answer your question, the scholarship is only for the foundations course that is offered at the university level or the independent colleges. Letters is paid out of federal money, and that was the $25 million that the state board allocated for that. So you've got to think about it right now in two different buckets. So thank you for the question. Ready to move. Thank you so much. All right, so that foundations was certainly a significant effort and has received really strong feedback from educators. But there's more work that we're doing. On page 12, you can see a summary of a course that was developed and is under pilot, designed specifically in the science of reading for para-educators. So many of you in the room are educators, so you know that oftentimes our paraeducators are asked to work with children that have the greatest needs. And so we're committed to providing paraeducators with training in order for them to have the skills they need to help those children. So Wichita State University stepped up to do a pilot. We have 50 scholarships and stipends allocated for paras. They had an enrollment this past summer of 27. We've had 15 paraeducators fully complete. Now, those courses are broken up into a 3-credit course, broken up into 1 credit hour at a time. When they finish the 3rd course, then they earned a micro-credential in structured literacy. So they'll have the skills to support intervention and to be strong partners in classrooms with teachers. On page 13, then, comes to the literacy enhancement grants. And I want to answer Senator Starnes' question, even though he is not here. Let me give you some context about what these opportunities are. The blueprint, under the guidance of the advisory committee, identified key needs based on various regions of the state for support that we could provide, which included direct tutoring in districts using our undergraduate students. It included coaching. It includes a wide variety of things, adolescent literacy focus for our secondary teachers, and work with multilingual students. So the universities were able to apply for a grant, and the grants were issued. On page 13, you can see the breadth of the projects that are underway. These are one-time grants. The funding will end at the end of the fiscal year. I'd be glad to come back with a full report on each of these initiatives. But the one that Senator Starnes asked about, which is the AI reading, Fort Hays is doing some research on how to utilize apps to provide instant feedback for pre-service teachers and eventually perhaps with students. This does not replace having them have a mentor teacher or a coach. It is just a tool for providing feedback. So be glad to have more detail about that for you. I wanted to highlight that we have impacted, Kelly, can I borrow that handout one more time? I'm sorry, I should have made sure I had a copy. A cute little one-pager again. It will tell you the number of children that have been impacted by these grants includes 759 K-12 students, 498 educators impacted in 51 different school districts. So to give you a flavor exactly what these grants are, I've asked for Dan Dooling to come talk about the Literacy Coaching Network that is underway as a pilot project with this grant funding at Pittsburgh State. I promise that he will be brief, but we want you also to be sure and ask questions of him of how this is working and what the impact is on students, and he has some data on that.
Yes, Lon. Representative Pishney.
I go by Lon often, so that's fine, Madam Chair. But my question, so we don't get too far removed from it, when you talked about the paras,
Yes, sir.
I'm aware of some paras who, once they get into the school district, start that career, have decided to go back to school to become a teacher. So how does this all connect, if you will, for lack of a better word? If they already have some of this training, are they going to get the rest of that when they go back to school, or are they going to have to start completely over? Help me with that.
So we have transitioned to teaching programs for paras at several of our universities, so that's what you're talking about. And those programs are teaching the science of reading courses in them. This particular pilot program is addressing paras who are not yet on the pathway to become a teacher, but they're in our schools working with children. So we're trying to address that. Now, 50 seems small, but we'll be talking with you, I hope, in the future about wanting to increase that to 350 so we can touch more of the paras that are out there.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Thank you.
We'll go to, you're welcome to Representative Brantley and then Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think I just need some clarification. The courses here are being taken by undergraduates, correct?
There are courses for undergraduates, the 2 Science of Reading 1 and 2 courses in the undergraduate program. There's courses, the Foundations course, which is a graduate level course for in-service educators. And then there's separate courses now for para-educators. So there are 3 different sets of courses. Same content, little different approach depending on how deep you need to go. With a para-educator, you may not go as deep, but you want them to have the skills so they can work in strong partnership with their teacher.
Madam Chair, can I follow up? So when we talked about that alignment of the programs with the science of reading, are all the universities giving all the students across the board the same science of reading instruction with their coursework, or is it kind of different depending on where you're going?
They're all required to teach the standards that are outlined by the State Department for the science of reading and structured literacy. So they may put those standards together in a little bit different view, but in essence, they're getting the same content and the same content knowledge and the same performance review for the undergraduates. We are evaluating using the same tool across the 7. So the courses may be a little bit different in terms of how the faculty member puts them together, but it's the same outcomes and the same assessment.
Okay, thank you.
I see your wheels spinning as an educator. I see you trying to put that
I see where
together.
the word foundation and a graduate level course don't normally pair up, and I wonder if that's part of the, no, not part, okay. We'll move
We're
on.
filling gaps there. That's a great point, Representative Estes. Remember, we're filling the gaps in our in-service educators who may not have had the training in structured literacy because, like me, they were trained years ago, or because perhaps their training didn't include it. So think of foundations as gap filling. As we train more and more educators at the undergraduate level, that need for that training at the graduate level should diminish. We should be able to go deeper.
Thank you. Representative Wolf.
Thank you, Chairman Estes. My question will be off of his. With the paraeducators, how do we choose which ones get to go? Because having been in the school system for 20 years, I know the turnover is great. How are we going to choose someone? What is your method of choosing so that the person that gets this training is still there next semester, next week?
Yeah, that's an excellent
Because it turns
question.
over quickly.
In the pilot, Wichita State University has a really strong partnership with local school districts, 259, but others in their surrounding area. And so those districts recommended the paraeducators that would participate. And in order to get the stipend, the paraeducator has to complete the course. So there's a little bit of an appreciation for them there.
You're welcome. Any other questions before we, Representative Hubert?
What's the percentage of current teachers that have already completed, and is it mandatory for all current teachers that are dealing with teaching reading to complete?
Are you talking about in-service? I want to be sure, because we do have 2 things going on. Or are you talking about the pre-service teachers?
Well, both. You know, what's, you know.
If you go back to that benchmark chart, Representative Hubert.
Page 8.
page?
8.
Thank you. Page 8. You can see that the Board of Education identified 18,698 currently serving elementary educators that had to go back and have the training. Of that number, between letters and foundations, we have trained 9,420. So I'll let you do the math in your head on the percentage there. In terms of the undergraduates, we've had 1,893 undergraduates go through the program and another nearly 1,000 that are go through the 2 courses, and another 1,000 will complete this year. So, 3,000 undergraduate pre-service teachers going through the Science of Reading application courses. Thank you. You're welcome. And let me just brag a bit. We have an 89% passage rate on the licensure exam for those undergraduates, and that's 14 percentage points higher than the national average.
We will go to Representative Brantley, then Chauncey, and then we're going to move on because we're facing the clock.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and I think, Dr. Lane, you know where I'm going. So where I was referring earlier is on page 8, in the paragraph where it says to date 9,420 have completed letters, and my question was
letters, comma, foundations.
Comma, foundations. So how many did not pass? And you just said 89% did, but how many have had to retake that or did not pass? Because is it true they have to go, it's 2 years to complete, like letters, it's 2 years to complete? If they don't pass the test, they start over with 2 more years?
The 89% is for your undergraduates. Put that in the undergraduate basket.
Is that a global historical number?
That is a recent, I asked Shane Carter, the Director of Licensure, what our current average is, and so that's current. Now, you ask what happens if they don't pass letters and how many have we had. I'll find that out for you because that is facilitated by the State Department. I don't know that. Now, and the 2-year issue too is, that's just, it's the way the training is organized. There are states who have accelerated that letters training. It's not taken 2 years, but that's the way we've set it up.
Last question.
This one. So I was just kind of curious that if it's modules, is there a way to track that as someone that's invested 2 years of taking letters, that we could identify where their gap of knowledge is prior to the 2-year to have to start over with 2 more years?
Looking at Dr. Curtis, she may have the answer to that for letters. I can answer it for foundations, but Dr. Curtis?
I think there needs to be a distinction that letters is done through the State Department, so Blueprint doesn't really have something to do with that. So in the interest of time, I'm going to go ahead and go to Representative Chauncey, but we are going to talk some more literacy tomorrow, so I think there's plenty of time for the department to gather answers to some of the questions. Representative Chauncey?
Yeah, just a quick question, I guess. I know we've got till 2030. We're supposed to have the 18,000 educators trained in this. What are we doing in the meantime? We have 9,000 trained now, you say, or 9,400, whatever we're at. What are we doing in the meantime for the teachers that don't have these credentials? I mean, how are we implementing them, working with the other teachers or in school districts where they don't have this? What's the procedure and what is the procedure, excuse me? And what are we doing for those teachers until they get the training?
In terms of what higher ed is doing is that we're marketing, we're encouraging, we're reminding them that there's no cost to them, that you can complete foundations in 2 semesters, so in less than a year. In terms of what's happening at the districts for letters, I would think you'd get a better answer from the State Department since they're overseeing that. But you make a great point. We've got to, while we're trying to get everybody trained up, we've got to make sure our children are getting what they need. Mm-hmm.
Thank you. Okay, well, let's go ahead and go to our next presenter.
Thank you very much. So again, Dan Dooling is the outreach partnership facilitator for our literacy coaching network called Connect Ed at Pittsburgh State. This is an example of the literacy enhancement grant. So, Dan.
Welcome, Dan. Is it Dr.?
No.
Okay, thank you.
I wish, but no.
We'll give you
Thanks,
one.
Madam Chair. Appreciate that. I was just thinking, what a great day to be a kid in Kansas, right? How many of you are Kansas school children? Look at that. We have lots of good Kansas friends in here. I appreciate that. Hey, my name is Dan Dooling, Pittsburgh State University. I got to tell you, I was a little nervous to be here because my 93-year-old mother, who lives across the pasture from me, we live in a very rural area, she said, show some gratitude. So I wanted to start by thanking you all for your service to the legislation and legislators. It's much appreciated. I know it takes a lot of time. Also want to thank you for the heavy lift on this with the blueprint. I'm a lifelong Kansan. I'm a Kansan kid. I went to Kansas schools, elementary teacher. I know you're going, wow, a guy in the elementary? Yeah, I was there with all the other women there. That was great back in the day. Met my wife there. That was even better. And then I became a building administrator, and I was a special education director for a decade. So I can really appreciate all the things you're doing and all the things you're saying. I work at Pittsburgh State University now as the Partnership and Outreach Facilitator, Literacy Enhancement Grant Coordinator. God, they couldn't put it all on here, so I had to tell you. It's a lot. And we are helping with coaching in the schools, school districts. And you say, did you pick some or how'd you do that? Well, we had a criteria. Small districts, 500 students or less in the district. I know if you're from a larger district, like I taught school in Olathe for a while, and that did, but 500 or less. So these are also schools that had a 40% or more students performing at level 1 in the Kansas English Language Arts Assessment. So that being said, we have our Pittsburgh State University coach and myself. I'm kind of the dot connector because I know all the school districts and I know many of the people there. But what I really appreciate is that we have touched now 639 souls who are students who are being affected directly by your good work. The money's going directly to coaching to kids, and I see it. I walk in the school district and there they are. We're also talking about 100, we've reached over 103 teachers in service. Those are the teachers that are in the classroom, they're doing their thing, they're getting their letters training, or they're gotten through the foundation courses, as Dr. Lane has said, or they're in the process. So we're really touching a lot of lives. What I really like about this work, and that Pittsburgh State's having me do, is this is adaptive work. This is relationship work. I think there was a question here, as somebody asked earlier, how do you know they're really doing it? Did somebody ask that, I think, earlier? How can we say that it's really, well, you all have jobs and you've all been around. You get their heart into it. You build a sense of confidence, you build a sense of relationship. And the way we did that, we started off after we asked the 4 districts we're serving in this model, would you like for us to help facilitate coaching, literacy coaching for your district? And so we hopped in the car. And who's in the car? We have our Associate Dean of the College of Ed, Dr. Clemson back there. We had Provost Vaughn and myself and our coach, and we went over to all the schools and said, would you like to? And they said yes. So all that being said, what I can tell you is it's not a cookie cutter model. That was asked earlier, I think. We have some districts who say, we need somebody that's kind of outside who can leave town and say things that need to be said. Or, no, we've got great people right here and we believe in them and trust in them. So the coaching is developed around their needs and where they're at. I do want to share that I believe in collaboration because it doesn't create redundancy. It's effective. So we're creating, Pittsburgh State University is working with KSDE, TASN, Greenbush, all the people, and trying to make that work well for teachers. I know I'm going to run a little long, but I'll just cut right to the chase, and that is, it's working. It's working, and you say, well, okay, you can say it's working, but how do you know? I just got a text, it was like right at lunchtime, and it was an exciting text. It was from one of our school districts and said, I know we're not moving systems here. We're still coaching, we're still helping teachers in the classroom with this instructional practices for literacy. But I gotta tell you, we did our fall and winter fast bridge test. We saw a 5% increase. And you could just feel the joy. And I mean, they're looking at data, they're rejoicing in their data. And at the same time, I heard some of them say also, I think some of these tools we're using, not so good. So we're going to start moving those out of the toy box and putting new toys in the toy box. So that being said, I just let you know that it is happening. Our coaching piece is working well. We are creating those relationships not only professionally, but also with all the professionals in the field. And again, on behalf of my 93-year-old mother and myself, thank you for all your service you do in Kansas. Appreciate that.
Thank you, Dan. Do we have questions for Dan? Seeing none, thank you so much. And I love your use of FastBridge and the district's use of FastBridge, and that I think I like KISA 2.0 because we are getting data, we can look at it faster, and I hope that you'll be comparing that to a group that is similar that wasn't coached. We'd like to see how that's working because, like I've always said, we got to do something, and let's measure early and often. You're welcome. Dr. Lane.
Thank you very much.
We're going to give you a couple of minutes to wrap up because I do have some guests in the room to introduce.
I understand to close. Just wanted to mention to you that the advisory committee developed a strategic plan for the blueprint for higher ed last spring. Much of this work we've talked about today is directly connected there. If you want to see the full plan, there's a link in your electronic version of the document, but it's focused on strengthening educator prep, increasing opportunities for real-world clinical experiences for undergraduates. It's focused on continuing to strengthen professional development and coaching as the primary thing. So I would encourage you to take a look at the plan. My last comment, Chair Estes, is moving forward, looking forward. I really want to encourage us to think about asking the state board to take the lead on developing a comprehensive literacy implementation plan that is pre-K through higher ed, where we all are working together with common strategies, having common accountability so that we can ensure that every child learns to read. Other states have demonstrated the power of a comprehensive approach is leading to successes. So I look forward to having that conversation with you.
We look forward to having you back tomorrow. Any questions for Dr. Lane? Seeing none, before I make my introductions, I'm going to allow Representative Steele to introduce her bill.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This would be RS number 2743, and it is an act concerning post-secondary education relating to a letter grading system in medical school.
Thank you very much. Any objection? Hearing none, your bill is introduced. I'm sorry, I will slow myself down. Representative McNorton.
Could you explain post-secondary? I guess, is that our
college?
Is that our?
Yes.
Is that okay? Okay.
All right. Any objection? Seeing none. So there is always great confusion because we have a higher ed budget and a K through 12 budget, but our committee is policy and anything education related, including higher ed and K through 12. So it's naturally confusing, and poor Senator Erickson gets to deal with all of them and be an expert in all of them. And I'm really glad I don't have to understand the higher ed budget. Dr. New, would you like to come to the, State Board Member New, would you like to please come to the microphone? So the State Board of Education is comprised of 10 members. They always have 2 who spend a lot of time here at the Capitol as our liaisons, and Member Zek has been replaced by Member New, and we wanted to welcome. Would you like to tell us something we should know about you?
Well, thank you so much, Madam Chair. I have 35 years in public education, and it is a drive, a personal passion, I suppose, that I can't let go of because now I'm on the State Board of Education. So thank you so much for welcoming me today.
You're very welcome. And did you bring some other State Board members with you today?
Yes.
Would you like to introduce them? And if they would please stand when they are introduced.
We have Board Member Connie O'Brien. And then we also have Board Member Danny Zek. And I think those are all the board members that are still.
Very good. And Danny, we use that word replaced lovingly. And Member O'Brien, how many years have you been on the State Board? 1 year, okay, so we're glad you're sticking around. Thank you so much for being with us. We look forward to seeing you further in the year, and I missed you the other day, so I'm glad we got to do that. We are almost out of time, but I wanted to kind of go through the rest of the week. Tomorrow, we are going to be continuing the literacy discussion and some things that Dr. Lane alluded to. I want to allow some time for the State Department to answer some of those questions. I hear committee members kind of putting together the idea of letters and the blueprint. They are different, but we're trying to achieve the same thing, so it's a natural thing to get finished. Gabby, on behalf of the department, we would love the most up-to-date number possible of how many Kansas teachers have completed their endorsement, and how many are in the middle of their second year, and how many are in the middle of their first year, because those numbers make a big difference, and they are a moving target, which means we're all making progress. I don't see anything else other than to thank you guys all for being so flexible. Representative Schreiber, you're the best door opener and closer I have. And all of you guys did a wonderful job of putting space together. I take responsibility for that because we thought we had the other room and that just didn't work out, and that's probably more on me than anybody else. Anything else for the good of the order? Then we are adjourned 2 or 3 minutes early.